Brett Perry.
And I'm Teresa Strasser. Veterans Day, it began as a way to commemorate the end of World War I, but we now celebrate all branches of the military during war or peacetime on November 11th.
That's right, and even though Veterans Day comes once a year, it's important to honor those who have served our country every day.
It's our privilege to share amazing stories of bravery and courage from veterans in our local community, as well as those from our sister stations around the country.
Our first story is about a U.S. Marine, pageant queen, and Team USA bobsledder.
Captain Riley Tejek is working on her dream to represent the United States in the Olympics, even while she's deployed overseas.
She's fast on the ice and strong in her combat boots. Captain Riley Tejek is staying on top of her game even while deployed.
6 a.m. every morning, I'm in the gym as best as I can, either in the gym lifting or outside trying to beat that early heat.
Before she deployed, Riley was based in Quantico, serving as a U.S. Marine Corps logistics officer, while still competing as a bobsled captain for Team USA.
I got my highest finish in Europe with the 5th place in Austria. I took overall 3rd place in the North American Cup, and I once again competed in my 2nd World Championships in Germany.
Riley has since taken a break from competing to volunteer for a deployment to Iraq.
I'm here as an operations officer for Operation Inherent Resolve.
Back in August, 7 U.S. personnel were injured during a suspected rocket attack not too far from her.
I am okay. Thankfully, no issues or anything here, but it's very real. There are people here that are being attacked, but I'm thankful that we have a great partnership. We have a great coalition forces, and everyone's here working to bring peace to the Middle East and freedom to all people.
But in a few months, she will be back from deployment and fully immersed into competition. Riley will don our nation's flag to compete for her spot to represent USA in the 2026 Olympics.
3 pilots for the United States team will make the Olympic team. There's 6 of us, so I'm going to keep giving it everything I have. But the United States bobsled team for the women's side has some of the best competition in the world with our 6 pilots. It's going to be an absolute dogfight, but Lord willing, we'll see what happens. And I can control my attitude and my effort, and I'm going to give everything I have to it.
Riley continues to train to get her heart, mind, body, and spirit ready for the games.
All I want to do is bring something positive, show people what is possible.
And on top of all her training and deployment, she somehow managed to write a children's book about being a female Marine and athlete, fittingly titled, If You Can Dream It, Be It.
I just want people to be able to see this story and be like, wow, if she can do it, then I can do it too. I want to be able to open up this narrow path that way more people can run through it. It's not about me, it's about showing the younger generation what's possible and what they can live up to.
The Wall That Heals is a traveling replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. It gives the veterans a chance to see the wall up close and personal without going to Washington.
It also allows the community the chance to honor the men and women who served and made the ultimate sacrifice during the Vietnam War era.
The motivation was, I remember, I came home from the Persian Gulf and my father and family are there, and I see him on the pier and I'm looking going, where were you when he came home? And they never got it, and it's just bothered me, and throughout the years I kept trying to find a way to honor him and the other Vietnam veterans that never got the homecoming that they so deserved.
That was the motivation for VFW Post 1033 Commander Sean Wright. With Wright's effort and the drive of the Allegheny Highlands community, the dream is now a reality. Not only is the Wall That Heals in place, there's a mobile education center which educates visitors about the Vietnam War. The Wall That Heals, which is 375 feet in length and bears the names of more than 58,000 men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam, is transported from community to community. It's been around since 1996, and the tribute honors more than the 3 million Americans who served in the U.S. Armed Forces during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam veterans there, as well as their families, appreciate the opportunity to see the replica wall.
I think it's really great to be here. I mean, we are really fortunate to have something this magnitude come to our little community. And it speaks well of all the people that's here today that came out. And it's just a tribute to the veterans, in my opinion.
That's what we're here for, is to help those Vietnam veterans let go, open up, share, and move on, to know they're not by themselves.
The Wall That Heals will be open 24 hours a day through Sunday at the Jackson River Sports Complex. In Covington, Jermaine Farrell, WFXR News.
The Wall That Heals was in Peoria this past April, and to visit the website you see on the screen to find out where you could be to see the wall again.
Stay with us for more Veterans Voices after the break. Imprints of Honor began with a single question from a high school student. Here to talk about this program, which has been connecting students with veterans since 2004, is founder Barbara Hatch, veteran Martin Sepulveda, and student Ava Montgomery. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to start with you, Barbara. You were teaching history when a student had a very compelling question, and it led to all of this. Tell us about that.
A student had seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, but he wanted to know what was fiction and what was fact. And I told him I'd read some books on it, and it looked pretty factual to me. But I said, just read, and I said, I wasn't there. Maybe there's some veterans in the greater Phoenix area that were on the beach. And so I reached out, and that led to finding a lot of veterans in the valley. Not all Normandy, but some.
Speaking of...
started bringing them in to talk to the students.
And here you are.
And here I am.
And you've been connecting students and veterans ever since. I want to bring in Martin Sepulveda. You come from a military family, served in the Marine Corps, served in the Navy from 1977 to 2015. Persian Gulf, Bosnia, Kosovo, Special Operations Command, Europe, and Afghanistan. Obviously, a very long and distinguished career. What did it mean to you to share your story across generations, to talk to high school students?
Well, it took a lot of convincing from Barbara first. You know, a lot of guys don't really talk about it, especially if we spend a lot of time in it. But once I got to know Emma, who was in junior high at the time, she made it really comfortable. She's so precocious. And I thought, well, those questions are interesting. They're canned questions. But then the follow-up questions, like, whoa, she's really got it together. But I think the most important thing for me is that the students can contextualize these histories of the wars. It's not glorious. It shouldn't be glorified. We're talking earlier, one of my favorite quotes is from John McCain. Those who glorify war are either fools or
frauds?
Frauds. Fools or frauds. And that boils it down. War is not a casual affair. It's serious business, and I think that's what the students need to know and understand, and through these interviews, they'll hopefully get a better understanding of that.
You make an excellent point, because I think very few of us, unless we're from a military family, we don't engage with veterans on a day-to-day basis, and specifically people who are in junior high or high school, like the girl who interviewed you, like the girl who asked...
it was a boy, actually.
A boy who asked Mrs. Hatch a question about Spielberg, and a lot of what we know about war and about veterans, we learned from movies. So I think that was a very astute question. Is that real? You are a student, and what has it meant to you to be associated with this program, Ava?
The first veteran I interviewed was my grandfather in 8th grade. He had never told his story to anyone, so not even my grandma knew. And we sat down with my 8th grade teacher, my 8th grade history teacher, and we probably spoke for 3 hours. And it was the first time he had talked to anyone, and it was the first time I felt like I really connected with him. And so then we shared this very real bond. It's been really special, and now I've gone on to interview people who I don't know. Tim Stringham, who's running for office. I've interviewed a lot of coworkers of my dad's, some uncles, family members. It's been an amazing experience, both to get to know people who maybe I never would have crossed paths with before, and then also family members.
It sounds like you were definitely able to have a real connection. Even though this is somebody you knew who was a relative, it was a different kind of thing. Did you feel like it did something for him to reveal things that might have been private?
I think so. I think for the first time he felt like he was recognized and honored. I hope that's how he felt. He definitely expressed a lot of emotions that maybe he wouldn't normally. He was very emotional when we did the parade, and it was just nice to see that for the first time he felt like he was seen.
Was that what the experience was like for you?
No. You know, I was in for a long time. And so, you know, you don't, she hit the nail on the head. A lot of vets don't really talk about it. You talk about when you're with your platoon, the people you serve with, but outside of that, it's kinds of banter. And quite frankly, sometimes people ask you questions that are just dumb. Did you kill anybody? Well, not today. Who wants to?
Not yet.
Who wants to revisit that type of stuff? But again, my takeaway really, and it was just delightful, is that there is an interest. Thanks to Barbara, the program is growing. And again, I can't overemphasize, war isn't casual. It's not a casual affair. It's serious business. And the movies are great, right? They've some very good movies, but the soundtracks are phenomenal. Guess what? When you're being shot at, you don't hear any music. You hear a lot of breathing, a lot of cussing, a lot of stuff, right? And so that's the real part. And I think connecting with vets outside of a movie theater, I think that brings more seriousness to the whole war.
Thank you so much. That was so beautifully said. Thank you, Barbara, for starting this program. And Ava, thanks for all you're doing. To find out more about Imprints of Honor, visit imprintsofhonor.org.
Not many people know about the Ghost Army unit during World War II. Their main mission was to deceive Hitler's troops. Here's a look at their bravery that saved many lives.
It sounds like something that belongs on the set of a movie.
Their mission was deception, and to carry it out, they used inflatable tanks and sound effects and illusion, impersonation, right on the battlefields of Europe.
Everything they did was to deceive the enemy while giving actual units time to move around.
Tanks crossing a small bridge.
They're known as the Ghost Army, a unit with about 1,100 soldiers that conducted 22 different deception missions, starting right after D-Day until the end of the war.
Deception is a great military tool. If you can fool the enemy about your intentions, about your location, if you can manipulate them to do what you want them to do, it's to your advantage. It can create surprise and help you out. So the Ghost Army, their mission was to impersonate other much larger American units.
These combat Karn artists had one goal: to save lives. But they did this with a bit of creativity.
So they had inflatable tanks and trucks and artillery and jeeps and inflatable spotter planes and anything. So they could set up a huge, presentation, if you will, on the battlefield.
They used sound deception.
They had sound trucks. These were half tracks with 500-pound speakers mounted on top that could play sounds that could go as far as 15 miles.
Radio deception.
So the enemy's listening in on the radio, and so you're sending phony radio messages and tying in with real radio networks.
And even special effects.
That involved physically impersonating the units that they're pretending to be. So they're going to put on phony shoulder patches to make it seem like they're in the 75th Infantry Division, let's say. They're going to set up fake headquarters, and they're going to have one of the guys be a fake general. I mean, I know it sounds made up, but this really happened and happened multiple times.
It sounds somewhat whimsical, but there were very real consequences.
And if you're going to understand the Ghost Army story, you want to enjoy the Hollywood aspects of it, the make-believe, the pretend, but you want to sober up pretty quickly to realize that there are people who are buried in cemeteries in Europe and in the United States who gave their lives to carry out this mission.
Rick Beyer runs the Ghost Army Legacy Project. His mission is to tell their stories.
It was all kept secret for 50 years or so after the war. This was a secret, and I got to tell you, there's still a lot of people who don't know very much about it at all.
These soldiers trained right here in Tennessee at Camp Forest. Today, there are just 3 living members of the Ghost Army left, and this year, they were finally honored at the Capitol, 75 years after they served. Although it's impossible to know exactly how many lives these men saved, their impact is clear.
There have been estimates that maybe 15 to 30,000 lives, and there's no way to know, right? Is that accurate? I met a guy once who was a tanker under Patton, and he had never heard of this unit. I said, I think this unit might have saved my life, and because he'd been in one of the places where they operated. And that to me was really meaningful, because you can talk numbers and say thousands here, thousands there, but here was one guy, and he was showing me pictures of his children and grandchildren and saying, well, maybe they wouldn't even have been born if it hadn't been for this unit.
Nikki Burdine, News 2.